Genesis of terror. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Concord maintained peace across 17 spiral arms. 326 species lived under its benevolent governance, sharing technology, resources, and cultural exchange. The Concord's grand fleet enforced this tranquility, not through tyranny, but through overwhelming technological superiority. Their Arbiter-class vessels, each the size of a small moon, served as both peacekeepers and deterrents. High Counselor Varix of the Athelian species gazed through the quantum observation deck of the Concord's capital station. His 4 eyes, evolved to track prey across the vast plains of his homeworld, now tracked the movements of diplomatic vessels instead. His silver-scaled skin reflected the starlight as his assistant, Mira, approached with the daily reports. "Another primitive world discovered in Sector 9, Mira said, her tentacles gently manipulating the holographic display. "Third-level civilization. Pre-FTL. Unremarkable." Varix nodded absently. The Concorde discovered dozens of such worlds each cycle. Standard protocol dictated observation until the species developed faster-than-light capability, the threshold for first contact. "Anything noteworthy about them?" he asked, more from politeness than interest. Mira's skin shifted to a contemplative blue. "They call themselves humans. Physically unimpressive. Oxygen-dependent carbon-based life. Their world, Earth, is a typical Class M planet. They've achieved nuclear fission and basic space travel within their system. Weapons? Primitive nuclear devices, kinetic projectiles, chemical propellants. Nothing that could threaten even our scout vessels." Varix dismissed the report with a flick of his hand. "Standard monitoring protocol. Move on to matters requiring actual attention." This dismissal would prove to be the Concorde's first fatal error. 3 standard cycles later, a Concorde survey vessel entered the Sol system to place standard monitoring satellites. Captain Drex of the Phylaxian Guard commanded the mission, expecting nothing more challenging than avoiding detection by the primitive terrestrial scanning systems. Entering orbit around the 4th planet, his navigator reported, "The humans maintain a small research outpost here." Drex nodded, his crystalline exoskeleton glittering under the command center's lights. "Maintain stealth protocols. Deploy the monitor satellites and—" "Captain," the sensor officer's voice rose in alarm. "Detecting energy signatures. The humans are tracking us." "Impossible," Drex said, mandibles clicking in annoyance. "Their technology is insufficient to—" A warning klaxon blared as something struck the vessel's shields. "We're being fired upon," the tactical officer reported, surprise evident in his pheromone release. "Kinetic projectiles with unusual properties." "Show me," Drex demanded. The display revealed a human orbital platform, crude by Concorde standards, launching what appeared to be simple metal projectiles. But as they approached the Concorde vessel, sensors detected quantum fluctuations surrounding the objects. "Fascinating," the science officer murmured. "They'd somehow manipulated quantum fields around ordinary metals." The projectiles passed through the Concorde's energy shields as if they weren't there, impacting directly on the hull. The damage was minimal. The vessel's self-repairing biometal easily absorbed the impacts, but the implications were staggering. "They shouldn't have technology to bypass our shields," Drex said, his voice ice-cold. "And they certainly shouldn't have detected us at all." The incident escalated quickly. The humans, detecting an alien presence for the first time, responded with understandable alarm. The Concorde, faced with unexpected technological sophistication, responded with prejudice rather than diplomacy. Within one planetary rotation, the Concorde's Science Directorate labeled humanity an aberrant evolutionary path, a designation reserved for species deemed dangerously unpredictable. The Defense Council authorized containment measures. The conflict that followed shocked the Concorde. Humankind's Mars colony fell within days, but the cost was higher than expected. Human weapons, while primitive, displayed innovations that periodically penetrated Concorde defenses. Earth itself proved surprisingly resilient, its unified defense grid demonstrating principles that conquered engineers found disturbingly creative. They think differently, explained scientist Supreme Thal to the High Council. His gelatinous form pulsed with agitation as he displayed the analysis. While their technology is centuries behind ours, they approach problems from angles our species discarded millennia ago. Explain, demanded Councillor Verix. The Concorde's technology evolved along consistent paths across all member species. We refined and perfected established principles. Humans, however, pursue multiple contradictory approaches simultaneously. They embrace imperfect solutions if they provide unexpected advantages. Is this cause for concern? Asked another counselor. It is. Thal's form darkened. Their learning curve is alarming. Each engagement with our forces yields significant adaptations in their defense systems. They're integrating principles they shouldn't even be able to observe. Verix's decision was swift. Deploy the Arbiter vessels. End this quickly. On Earth, the unified human government, hastily formed in response to the existential threat, gathered in an underground facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Military leaders, scientists, and political representatives faced the grim reality of their situation. Admiral Helena Chen, former NATO commander, addressed the Emergency Council. The alien vessels are unlike anything we've encountered. Their smallest scout ships outmass our largest carriers. The approaching vessels are the size of small moons. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, head of the newly formed Xenophysics Division, activated a holographic display. We've analyzed debris from the engagements around Mars. Their technology operates on principles we theorized but never implemented: 11-dimensional manipulation of subspace geometry, artificial quantum coherence across macroscopic distances, and biomechanical integration at the molecular level. Can we defeat them? Asked President Williams, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Not conventionally, Chen replied. But Dr. Kapoor's team has identified several critical weaknesses in their approach. Kapoor nodded. The aliens' technology is advanced but predictable. They've refined the same principles for what we estimate to be thousands of years. They've optimized rather than innovated. They've forgotten alternatives. And we haven't, Williams observed. Precisely. Kapoor smiled grimly. We've identified 3 specific vulnerabilities. Their shields operate on subspace geometry that's vulnerable to dimensional phase shifting. Their biomechanical systems lack protection against targeted nanoviruses, and their sensor arrays cannot detect certain quantum states that we theorized in the 2020s. Can we exploit these weaknesses? Chen and Kapoor exchanged glances. We believe so, Chen said, but it would require concentrating all our remaining resources on a single project. A weapon? Williams asked. Not exactly, Kapoor corrected. More, a delivery system for multiple specialized countermeasures. We're calling it Project Nemesis. For 6 months, as the massive Concorde Arbiters approached the Sol system, humanity worked with desperate innovation. Resources from across Earth were channeled into hidden facilities. Theoretical physics that had been academic curiosities became the foundation for desperate countermeasures. Aboard the lead Arbiter vessel, designated Judgment of Truth, Supreme Commander Zex reviewed the approach to the human homeworld. His species, the Vortak, had evolved as apex predators, and he took pride in efficient, decisive victories. This human problem had persisted longer than expected, but its end was now assured. Final approach to the third planet, his executive officer reported. Our fleet is in optimal formation. The humans have gathered their remaining vessels in a defensive posture around their world. Predictable, Zex rumbled, his massive form shifting in the command cradle. Status of the planetary reduction system. Charging. Supreme Commander. Full capacity in 8 hours. Zex studied the tactical display. The human fleet was insignificant. A handful of primitive vessels armed with nuclear weapons and the curious phase-shifting projectiles they'd demonstrated earlier. Nothing that could threaten the Arbiter. which stretched 20 kilometers from stem to stern and housed over 3 million Concorde personnel. They've deployed something new, the sensor officer reported. A single vessel, smaller than their others. Cylindrical configuration, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Magnify, Zex ordered. The display showed a sleek, metallic craft unlike the human's other vessels. It bore no visible weapons ports, no conventional propulsion systems. Its hull had a curious shimmer that the sensors struggled to analyze. Composition, Zex asked, feeling an unfamiliar prickle of unease. Unknown, Commander. Our scans cannot penetrate its outer layer. Open a channel, Zex ordered. Let us hear their final words before extinction. The communication system activated, and a human face appeared on the main display. A female, by their dimorphic characteristics, with dark skin and eyes that held none of the fear Zex expected. Concorde vessel, the human said calmly. This is Admiral Helena Chen of Earth United Command. You have entered sovereign human space without permission and engaged in unprovoked hostilities against our species. Withdraw immediately. Zex's secondary hearts pulsed with amusement. Human, your species has been designated aberrant. The Concorde has authorized your containment. Surrender now, and we will preserve specimens of your kind in our biological archives. The human's expression didn't change. We were afraid you'd say that. She glanced off-screen. Deploy the resonators. On the tactical display, 6 small objects detached from the human vessel, arranging themselves in a geometric pattern around it. Analysis, Zex demanded. Appears to be some form of defensive drone network, his tactical officer replied. No apparent offensive capability. Prepare main batteries, Zex ordered. Let's end this quickly. The Arbiter's weapon systems activated. Beam projectors capable of slicing through planetary crusts. Gravity manipulators that could crush conventional matter into singularities. Fields that disrupted molecular bonds at the quantum level. As the first energy beams lanced out toward the human vessel, something unprecedented occurred. The beams simply vanished upon contact with the ship's hull. Not absorbed, not deflected. They ceased to exist. Explanation, Zex roared. Before his officers could respond, the 6 resonator devices activated, creating a complex energy pattern that rippled across space toward the Arbiter. The pattern passed through the Concorde vessel's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they weren't there. Impossible, breathed the defensive systems officer. They created a dimensional interference pattern that exploits the mathematical basis of our shield geometry. Reconfigure the shields, Zex ordered. Trying, but the pattern keeps adapting. From the human vessel, a swarm of tiny objects, each no larger than a Vortac fist, launched toward the Arbiter. They passed through the compromised shields and adhered to the vessel's biomechanical hull. What are they? Zex demanded. Some form of delivery mechanism, the science officer reported, panic edging into his voice. They're releasing something into our hull material. On the communication channel, Admiral Chen's expression remained calm. You made a critical error in your assessment of humanity, Commander. You saw our technological limitations but missed our conceptual advantages. You've spent millennia refining. We've spent our entire history adapting. Throughout the massive Arbiter, systems began failing. The living metal of the hull began deteriorating as specialized nanites attacked molecular bonds. Quantum communication networks collapsed as targeted interference patterns exploited fundamental weaknesses in their design. Weapons systems overloaded as power distribution nodes reversed their energy flow. What is happening? Zex roared as emergency alarms blared across the command center. Admiral Chen's voice was steady. We call it the Nemesis Protocol. You brought a perfected weapon to destroy us. We built an imperfect weapon specifically designed to destroy you. As the Arbiter began to break apart from within, Zex stared at the human with new understanding. The Concorde had made a catastrophic miscalculation. They had evaluated humanity's technology, but failed to grasp the true danger, humanity's approach to problem-solving itself. The last thing Supreme Commander Zex saw before the command center's structural integrity failed was the small human vessel, the Nemesis, moving past the disintegrating Arbiter toward the next Concorde ship in formation. The genesis of terror had arrived. Reckoning of stars. The destruction of the Arbiter Judgment of Truth sent shock waves through the Galactic Concorde. In 12,000 years of expansion, no species had ever destroyed a primary Arbiter vessel. The loss of 3 million personnel and Supreme Commander Zex created immediate panic among the invasion fleet. Pull back to defensive positions, ordered Acting Commander Trell, the highest-ranking survivor. His voice quavered as he addressed the remaining 19 Arbiters. Maintain distance from the human vessel. The massive Concorde ships, each capable of sterilizing a planet's surface, retreated from a single human craft 1/10,000th their size. Trell's 4 hearts pounded as he studied sensor readings of the unprecedented disaster. Analysis of the Judgment's destruction, he demanded. His science officer's skin had paled to a sickly gray. The humans deployed multiple attack vectors simultaneously. Targeted nanoviruses adapted to our biomechanical systems. Quantum resonance patterns exploiting dimensional mathematics we considered unassailable. And something new. Artificial entities that interfaced with our computer systems and rewrote operational parameters. How could they possess such technology? Trell asked, mandibles clicking in agitation. That's the most disturbing aspect, the science officer replied. They don't. Not in the way we understand technology. They've cobbled together theoretical concepts with primitive implementation. By all standards, these weapons shouldn't function, yet they do, and with devastating effectiveness. On Earth, Admiral Chen monitored the Nemesis telemetry from the Atlantic Command Center. Beside her, Dr. Kapoor studied the data streaming in from the vessel's sensors. The resonator configuration worked exactly as theorized, Kapoor said, unable to hide his amazement. Their shields operate on exactly the dimensional principles we predicted. Chen nodded. And the key units. 23 penetrated the Arbiter's hull before detonation. The nanite dispersal was 89% efficient, well above our 75% requirement threshold. What about the AI infiltrators? Kapoor's expression grew troubled. That's unexpected. They didn't just compromise the target vessel's systems as planned. They've transmitted themselves to other Concorde ships through quantum communication channels we didn't know existed. Chen leaned forward. Is that good or bad for us? Potentially very good. Our defensive AIs are propagating through their fleet faster than they can isolate them. They're designed to learn and adapt based on each new system they encounter. President Williams entered the command center, followed by representatives from the unified government. The Arbiters are pulling back, she observed. Is this victory? Not yet, Chen cautioned. They still outnumber us 19-1. The Nemesis performed beyond expectations, but it's one vessel against a fleet of planet killers. What options does the Concorde have? Williams asked. Dr. Kapoor manipulated the tactical display. Based on our understanding of their technology, they have 3 logical responses. 1. Retreat and report to their central authority. 2. Maintain distance and use long-range weapons to destroy Earth from beyond the Nemesis's effective range. 3. Overwhelm the Nemesis through simultaneous attack from multiple vectors. And our countermeasures. Chen highlighted elements of the display. The Nemesis can handle 3, possibly 4 Arbiters simultaneously with current systems. Earth's defense grid can intercept some long-range attacks, but not a concentrated barrage. As for retreat, that would give us time to build additional Nemesis-class vessels. Williams nodded grimly. Then we need to convince them that retreat is their best option. In deep space, aboard the Arbiter Eternal Vigilance, Acting Commander Trell faced a crisis unlike any in Concorde history. The humans' unexpected capabilities threaten not just the invasion force, but potentially the Concorde itself if their innovations spread. The human vessel is advancing, his tactical officer reported. maintaining position between our fleet and their homeworld. Options, Trell demanded. We still possess overwhelming firepower, his strategic advisor noted. A simultaneous attack from all remaining arbiters would overwhelm their defenses, even with their unexpected capabilities. And the cost? Trell asked. Models suggest we would lose between 4 and 7 additional arbiters, acceptable losses for species containment. Trell considered this. In normal circumstances, the calculation would be simple, but there was another factor, one that military protocols didn't address. What are these infiltrator programs doing in our systems? He asked the cybernetics specialist. The specialist's tendrils writhed in distress. They're learning, Commander. Accessing historical databases, technical specifications, strategic protocols. They appear to be mapping the entire Concord knowledge network through our quantum communication systems. Can they transmit this information back to Earth? Unknown, but we must assume so. The implications were staggering. If the humans gained access to the accumulated knowledge of the Concord, technological specifications, strategic doctrines, biological data on all member species, the threat they posed would increase exponentially. There's more, the specialist continued. The infiltrators have begun inserting data into our networks as well. What data? Information about human history, culture, and warfare. Specifically, examples of human conflicts where technologically superior forces were defeated by innovative tactics. Trell felt a chill pass through his exoskeleton. This wasn't just an attack, it was a message. The humans were showing the Concord exactly what they were facing. A species that specialized in asymmetric warfare, that thrived on being outmatched, that converted disadvantages into advantages. Commander, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. On the main display, Admiral Chen appeared again. Behind her stood other humans, military officers, scientists, political leaders. Concord Fleet, she began. You've witnessed what one human vessel can accomplish against your most powerful warship. The Nemesis is the first of its kind, but not the last. Even now, we are constructing more, incorporating what we've learned from our encounter. Trell's mandibles clicked nervously. State your demands, human. First, the immediate withdrawal of all Concord forces from the Sol system. Second, recognition of Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory. Third, reparations for the destruction of our Mars colony. And if we refuse? Trell asked, though he already suspected the answer. Chen's expression hardened. Then we will deploy the Nemesis against your remaining vessels, one by one. And we will release the knowledge your infiltrated systems have provided us to every spacefaring species in the galaxy, including those outside Concord control. The threat was clear. The Concord maintained power through technological superiority. If that advantage was compromised, you destabilized the entire galactic community, Trell protested. Thousands of years of peace. Peace for whom? Chen countered. You attacked us without provocation, destroyed our colony, planned to eradicate our species. Your peace is built on the supremacy of certain evolutionary paths over others. We reject that premise. For several moments, Trell was silent, calculating possibilities. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that defied Concord understanding. Their one vessel had destroyed an arbiter considered invincible. Their AIs were spreading through Concord networks in ways that could not be contained without shutting down the quantum communication system entirely, which would cripple the fleet's coordination. And behind the Nemesis stood Earth, a planet of humans who had created this weapon in mere months, under threat of extinction. What would they create given years? Decades? I will consult with the High Council, Trell finally said. Chen nodded. You have 12 Earth hours. After that, the Nemesis will advance on your position. As the communication ended, Trell turned to his advisors. Prepare a complete report for the Council. Include all sensor data from the Judgment's destruction. Your recommendation, Commander? Asked his executive officer. Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of resignation among his species. That we withdraw and reassess. The humans don't think like us. They don't fight like us. Our models cannot predict their actions because they operate outside our conceptual framework. The Council will not be pleased, his executive officer noted. No, Trell agreed, but they will be alive to be displeased. That's more than can be said for Zex and his 3 million crew. 11 hours later, the Concorde fleet began retreating from the Sol system. The Nemesis maintained position between the alien vessels and Earth until they passed beyond the Kuiper Belt. In the Atlantic Command Center, champagne bottles were opened as personnel celebrated humanity's unlikely survival. But in a private conference room, Admiral Chen, Dr. Kapoor, and President Williams maintained more measured expressions. How much did the eyes recover? Williams asked. Kapoor consulted his tablet. More than we imagined possible. Star charts for the entire Concorde territory, technical specifications for their major weapon systems, biological data on all member species, and most valuable, their FTL technology. We could build our own interstellar vessels, Chen mused. We could, Williams agreed. But should we? The Concorde retreated today, but they control thousands of worlds, billions of ships. We've won a battle, not the war. Actually, Kapoor interjected, we may have won more than that. The AIs discovered something interesting in the Concorde's historical records. In 12,000 years, the Concorde has never encountered a species that thinks like humans. Meaning? Chen asked. Their psychology, their very evolutionary path, created a civilization that values refinement over innovation, stability over adaptation. When faced with our approach, chaotic, innovative, willing to pursue imperfect solutions, they have no effective response. Their entire strategic doctrine assumes opponents will think and act as they do. Williams considered this. You're suggesting our greatest weapon isn't the Nemesis at all. It's the human mind itself. Precisely. Kapoor nodded. The Nemesis demonstrated that one human vessel could destroy their most powerful warship. The psychological impact of that fact may be more powerful than any technology we could deploy. Chen smiled slowly. Fear. We've made them fear us. Not just fear, Kapoor corrected. Incomprehension. They don't understand how we think, how we fight. That uncertainty is paralyzing to a civilization built on predictability. So what's our next move? Williams asked. Chen studied the galactic map now displayed on the conference room wall, a map showing the vast expanse of Concorde territory, with Earth a tiny point on its periphery. We prepare, she said simply. We build more Nemesis vessels. We study the Concorde's technology and improve upon it. We establish defensive positions throughout our system. And diplomatically. Williams pressed. Chen and Kapoor exchanged glances. We reach out, Chen suggested. There are species inside and outside the Concorde that might value our unique perspective. Allies would strengthen our position. Williams nodded slowly. From potential extinction to galactic player in 6 months. Not bad for a primitive species. As the three leaders discussed humanity's future, the Nemesis continued its patrol at the edge of the solar system. Its revolutionary hull gleamed in the distant sunlight, a testament to human innovation, determination, and the unique perspective that had transformed a death sentence into a new beginning. The reckoning of stars had only just begun.